president this week announced that the country will go into phase 2 of lockdown, which gives us just a few more rights than before. Drinking, however, he took great pleasure to announce, remains prohibited.
With the end of stage 1 at midnight on the 4th of May 2020, I wish to announce that stage 2 will come into force for 28 days from 5th of May 2020 to 1st of June 2020. During stage 2, the following measures will apply to all Namibians. 1, all members of the public are required to wear face masks in public spaces. Government will assist vulnerable persons to acquire the mask. 2, people will be permitted to travel domestically between regions and within towns and cities without restriction. 3, our borders will remain closed for non-Namibians, but returning Namibians will be permitted to re-enter the country subject to screening at points of entry and supervised quarantine for 14 days. Businesses and productive activities, unless prohibited, will be permitted to reopen, subject to responsible personal and organizational conduct, and in compliance with the prescribed health and hygiene guidelines. 5, in addition to fulfilling the established protocols, the following businesses will be allowed to resume, subject to specified conditions. Shopping malls and retail outlets. Restaurants to continue operating on a takeaway basis as before. Buying and selling of alcohol is prohibited. I got all kinds of SMSs. People asking me, please, President, just open it just for 4 hours. Well, wait still for more hours. Alcohol has been a problem in this country. We may use this crisis to address that problem of alcoholism. By buying and selling of alcohol remains prohibited.
What is of concern to me, however, is the ease with which we Namibians have relinquished our civil rights, and many Namibians are just lamenting the fact that they just can't get a drink. I asked Africanist political activist Henning Melber, who is a German Namibian currently based in Sweden, to share his views on the impact of this on African societies.
In his statement of 30th April, President Geingob stressed, rightly so, that the health of Namibians remains our greatest priority. And I think the government deserves the benefit of the doubt that it really tries hard to come to terms with the challenges of COVID-19. These are no easy times. And the president might therefore have been motivated to also declare that the state of emergency is extended for a period totaling to 6 months, meaning from 17th of March, when it was originally has been declared, until the 17th of September. And he makes reference to a cabinet meeting end of April. Now, I'm not a constitutional expert, but as far as I understand Article 26, Clause 2 of Namibia's constitution, this state of emergency, after 30 days at the latest, requires a resolution by 2/3 of the members of the National Assembly to be extended, which means it cannot be extended for a total period of 6 months without having the approval of 2/3 of the elected representatives of the Namibian people. And I think we need to watch very carefully that the rule of law remains respected and recognized even in these difficult circumstances. Namibia is not the only country in which the extraordinary circumstances create temptations for those in government to extend their authority and thereby reduce civil and human rights of the ordinary population. Yes, some of these measures might be justified. Some others need to be looked at cautiously, maybe even suspiciously. There is a problem when a lockdown risks the fundamental means of survival for a considerable number of people. And that is the case not only in Namibia, but also in many other, especially African societies. And we have seen it the last weeks, not only in Namibia, also elsewhere, South Africa, Malawi, some other countries, where the people are desperate because the lockdown robs them of their survival strategies. Informal markets, pavement trades, and all those things are essential necessities for the poor. And like in other countries, the responses by governments to COVID-19 entrenches even deeper the way they divide between the haves and the have-nots. It's one thing to adjust to home isolation if you live in a posh suburban area with a nice garden, a nice food storage, a nice wine cellar. Then you can do it for weeks. It's another issue if you live 6, 7, 8 people on 10, 15, 20 square meters in a shack, and you are told you have to keep personal hygiene without running water, without proper sanitation. That doesn't work like that. So at the end of the day, there is a huge risk that after Corona, we have even a more unequal society. And Namibia is already one of the most unequal societies in the world. Now, the government has, rightly so, been praised for a very quick response by issuing this grant of $750 Namibian for a month to a large proportion of the population. That might be a positive lesson, because it could be an incentive to consider in so-called more normal times the introduction of a long-discussed basic income grant as a survival strategy for the majority of the population. Let me come back to one of the restrictions. That is the banning of the sales and the purchase of alcohol, which is a very ambivalent means. A, it adds to the frustration of the ordinary people. It might even fuel more the risk of domestic violence, which already is increased under lockdown circumstances. But people who are battling to be sober might become even more aggressive than those people who tend to become more aggressive intoxicated. So that's a risk. The other risk is that, of course, so-called informal illegal trading with liquor will take place. And those who can afford will purchase alcohol at much higher prices, with the one disadvantage that government and state is losing out on tax revenue income, because the liquor sold in the bottle stores is taxed and generates the desperately needed income for the state.
The suffering that neglected Namibians have endured under this lockdown due to the coronavirus has had a devastating effect on their ability to secure food. Before lockdown even ensued, some woke Namibians created a Facebook page called The Reality Check to illustrate the woes of those living in Rehoboth.
I'm a stranger in my own town. 29 years after Namibian independence. Rehoboth, the most democratic town in Namibia, is in a political war. If you look closely, you will see the dark houses, thirsty, starving and fed up people trying their best to survive and putting up a happy face. In Rehoboth, politics is the reason why human rights have been violated so much that people are left unemployed, without water, with a non-functional sewer system, covered with dust in the mornings on land they don't own. And the people that do own property, the water bills being higher than the value of the property they own. Namibia forms part of the Commonwealth countries and the United Nations, and yet only half of the Rehoboth citizens have access to clean running water. How do politicians making empty promises sleep at night? It seems the free meal system before an election is enough to keep politicians in power. The gap between the wealthy and the poor is growing bigger and faster than ever before.
We are here today to talk about the current conditions of infrastructures, services in Rehoboth, and how it has deteriorated to such a bad condition that is at some places uninhabitable for our citizens. If you look at the sewage, there should have been a maintenance plan. There should have been pressure from government or from the community to ensure that all is being fixed as soon as possible. To a stage where you look for the maintenance manager responsible for the entire sewage repairs, they are not available.
Ons hier in die binnekant het die toilets geriewe nie. Ons moet daai weggooi toilets. Onze gade, onze jaartjies is vol gade. Maar ons gro om onze riool weg te gooi.
We are standing in Rehoboth, Block E, in the trenches of an abandoned sewage project. This project has been abandoned for the past 5 years, which has been left by the contractor or whoever is project, left like this, and then you can clearly see that people, children especially, is exposed to very bad conditions because this soil is collapsible and can collapse on soil. This is clearly a result of government not having project managers in place or even trained people in project management. And this is the result of employees in a council being involved in politics. Cannot happen anymore. We need to take a stand as people from Rehoboth to fix our infrastructures, to fix our rubbish problems. We need to come up with solutions. We need to look at solutions from our dusty roads. We need to look at the water accounts and look at the NEM water bill. We need to look at the electrical bill.
Die story is hulle die krag mense se krag afgesny omdat hulle water skuld het. Want ons het mos al kopkrag, maar hulle sny die krag uit daar op die pale af.
We need to look at our consumption. We look at potential for water saving. It is a complete package. And also we must look at things like erven for people. There is 20 years later after a report has been done, nothing has happened. So it's now time that there comes people into office, in the Rehoboth office, that will solve these problems or just take action or will be at work. Councillors who are not available must not make them avail themselves for council, because this will be a calling and not a career. Full-time job which you need to solve this problem of Rehoboth. And people are relying on a leader that must come and fix all of this. So first of all, this sewage cannot happen because we are exposed to hepatitis. People, children around the area to hepatitis. Households without a drop of water. There is an infringement on human rights. We need to look at that infringement on human rights. Children are going to school without even having a bath. Even like I'm standing now, there's flies all over me. and you can think about the situation when the heat is coming. Additionally, people are borrowing water from neighbors and neighbors overcharging them, paying as much as 200 Namibian dollars per cubic meter of water, which means a 5 rand for 20 liters of water. This is unacceptable. Every household needs their own water.
I spoke to Rudy van Wyk, who initiated Reality Check.
A reality check was born out of frustration and the conditions that the Rehoboth people was living in. And that the voices of the Rehoboth people and the truth could never be exposed or shown to the world, thus leaving the politicians open to do as they please, and that the existing newspapers and media houses could only screen what they want to tell because of their affiliation to the political parties. Thus, Reality Check, showing the real videos made of the real conditions in Rehoboth to ensure that justice is being served and shown to the world, that that the politicians is put under pressure to ensure that they do right by the people that put them into office, and that the voices of each and every individual is heard and make a massive difference. And not only can the newspapers now decide who and which political parties and which political individuals they want to promote, but that we really promote and show that there is many potential that is hidden, so that those people can also get a chance to represent their towns, their areas in this democratic town.
They also interviewed Ashley Asip, a 25-year-old man who survives by scavenging off the dump site.
Ons weet nie hoe lank sal ons nog hier so suffer. Ons weet nie hoe lank gaan ons so swaar kry nie. Ons stap meer as 5 of 6 kilometer uit Rehoboth. Hoe lank moet ons meer as 5 of 6 kilometer stap? Ons het 'n kanselaar wat die reg het om vir ons om te sien, wat die reg het om die dorp op te pas. Hy moes die reg om vir ons kos gee as daar dan soveel as hy dan hier kom en kom sien hoeveel jong mense is hierso. Hoekom kan hy nie vir ons werk reël nie? As die kanselaar dan vir ons werk reël, sal ons mos nie so swaar kry nie. As ek reg is, as ek verkeerd is, as ek verkeerd. Van ek uit die skool uit is, suffer ek hierso. Vir my 25 jaar wat ek nou lewe, suffer ek hierso.
We celebrated Press Freedom Day this week, and Media Ombudsman John Nakuta gave an interesting statement on our right as citizens to express ourselves, even disrespectfully, without fear of incarceration, to presidential spokesperson Alfredo Hengari. Check this out.
The mere fact that form of expressions are considered to be insulting to a public figure is not sufficient to justify the imposition of penalties. It goes further. All public figures, including those exercising the highest political authority, such as a head of state and government, are legitimately subject to criticism and political opposition. That has been said by the UN Committee on Human Rights. And so this is really, the question that Zoe was asking, it's like whether I, as the media ombudsman, engage Dr. Hengari. No, I haven't done so. But this will be some of the things, if I were to engage him, this will be some of the things that I would tell him. For the politicians out there, and I don't want to sound disrespectful, there's a saying that says, if you cannot take the heat, get out of the kitchen. You had to develop a thick skin. It comes with the territory. So it shouldn't be taken personal. And international human rights law actually adheres to that very principle. That those, in English they're also saying the highest tree catches, how do you say it, Gwen? Catches the most wind. It really comes with that. Comes with the territory, Dr. Hengari.
Namibians have taken to social media to express their reservations about our too close ties to China in light of all the negative publicity around Chinese citizens in recent years. Namibia's ambassador to China, Elia Kaiyamo, was recently criticized by some after refuting claims that Namibians were being mistreated in China. This video of him on a Chinese television show has tongues wagging this week. Activist Job Amupanda posted, Namibian ambassador to China correctly explaining how the regime in Namibia has lost control and legitimacy in the eyes of the youth. But I don't understand why Chinese are making those sounds while the revolutionary leader is speaking.
But the new generation in the new era, just like here, they don't want to listen to the older people. So this culture must continue. We want it to continue. It's the only way when we can learn from the older ones. Now, young people, they're on the phone. So what I'm driving at, the respect in Namibia is important. That's why there's order. Namibia is one country in Africa where there's order. Sam Nujoma, the founding president of Namibia, not the same. In the past. Now, today, now. The point I'm driving it here, the way people listen to Mao Zedong is not the same today.
The enthusiasm with which the president announced that alcohol would remain prohibited truly inspired Namibians. Here are a few memes and creative expressions on how Namibians feel about this. Check this out.
Okay, President Mire. Now what happened? I was watched Casa. I'm talking about the 750 you said you are today most. Hey, it's Tuesday, look at the hour of the time. I'm still without, I told the people that I'm owing money that I will be within today. That I will be within and they are still calling me. But then come who say Marichin I wanted to get married with that 750 and buy electricity and also groceries and also buy my DSTV. Yeah, I was just buying on that money.
Hage, mi pra. Hage low. Hagile. Hugs. Magnaman. Alsjeblieft. Ik heb plannen gehad voor die naweek. Alsjeblieft man. Hagile.
Buying and selling of alcohol is prohibited. Prohibited. And buying and selling of alcohol is prohibited throughout the country. Throughout the country. Throughout the country. Throughout the country. Prohibited. And buying and selling of alcohol is prohibited.
I'm still without it now. Het is het woord gewonnen 750. Hoe zeg je? It's a dead responsible 750 man. Look the hour. I'm waiting ever since in the morning to the afternoon. It's almost 7 here. I'm still without. Okay. Yeah, I'll just wait for you, Ame. It's 7 o'clock right now. I will call you 1 minute past 7, Ame. Ooh.
And with that, it's a wrap. Make sure to catch It's a Wrap in our new time slots now on Sundays from 7:30 with repeats on Tuesday mornings at 6:30 and Tuesday evenings at 8:30. Stay woke and thanks for watching.